A tragic incident happened on May 1st, 1994, that took the life of three-time F1 world champion Ayrton Senna. Now, if we look back in time, we have many questions. What happened, and how a trivial policy change in F1 caused this tragedy? We may have received many answers until now, but one question arises every time, which is still unanswered even after 30 years. Who killed Senna? We have seen occasional accidents in each F1 season, where drivers lose their lives and some get injured very badly, but 3 incidents in the same weekend? Was it a planned incident? Who was planning all of this behind the scenes? Why was Senna not liked by Formula One beasts? Starting in the 1994 season, when Senna changed his team from McLaren to Williams,
ladies and gentlemen, Brazilian driver Ayrton Senna.
He had no idea it would be his last team and season. The season started in Brazil at Autodromo José Carlos Pace, and all the native fans were supporting Senna. As it was his hometown, he knew the circuit like the back of his hand and started from pole position, leading Michael Schumacher, who was in second place. Everything was going well in the first few laps. However, a crash happened in the race involving 4 cars on lap 35.
Bernard being forced off the track, Verstappen with a full 360-degree turn over the top.
Jos Verstappen tried to pass Irvine, but Irvine pushed him onto the grass. Verstappen spun off, going over Irvine, tipping into Bernard's car, and then hitting Brundle, resulting in a series of barrel rolls. No one was hurt, but Irvine was initially banned for 1 race, which was later extended to 3 races by the FIA after an unsuccessful appeal. Unfortunately, Senna could not finish the race because a rare mistake on lap 56 took him out, and the crowd was disappointed, leaving the circuit. Schumacher won the race by a complete lap ahead of Damon Hill, but it was just the beginning. The second race of the season started in Japan at TI Circuit, and once again, Senna was the darling of the crowd. He started at pole position ahead of Schumacher. When the lights went green, Senna was overtaken by Schumacher before the first corner, and was then hit from behind by Mika Häkkinen, spinning off the track.
Senna moved across in front of the McLaren of Häkkinen, who touched him and spun him round off the track.
Nicola Larini also went off the track and crashed into Senna, causing race-ending damage to both cars. Schumacher made it 2 wins out of 2. The first 2 races of the season had ended, and Senna was yet to finish his first. He was unable to complete both races with his new team. The question arises, why was the 3-time world champion not even able to complete all laps, let alone finish in the top 5? As fate would have it, things were only going to get worse for Senna. The third race of the season was about to start at Autodromo Enzo A. Dino Ferrari on May 1st. The weekend is known as the most horrible weekend in Formula One history. On Friday, April 29th, during practice, Rubens Barrichello hit a curb at the Variante Bassa corner at 225 km/h, launching him into the air. He hit the top of the tire barrier and was knocked unconscious. He was taken to the circuit's medical center before being transferred to Maggiore Hospital in Bologna by helicopter. Barrichello's tongue blocked his airway during the crash, and emergency work done by FIA Dr. Sid Watkins saved his life. He suffered a sprained wrist and a broken nose. Barrichello regained consciousness and found Senna looking over him at the medical center. After learning Barrichello had survived, Senna returned to his car and continued his practice session. On the very next day, April 30th, in the qualifying round, something similar happened. Roland Ratzenberger, in his first season as a Formula One driver, had run over a curb at the Acque Minerali chicane on his previous lap, the impact of which is believed to have caused the front wing flap to fall off his car. Rather than return to the pit lane, he continued on another fast lap. On his next lap, the car accelerated past 300 km/h for the first time since he went off on the previous lap. The front wing gave way to the air pressure and broke off entirely, causing Ratzenberger to lose control and crash into the wall at the Villeneuve corner at a speed of 314 km/h. The session was immediately stopped, and doctors were on the spot within a minute, with Chief Doctor Sid Watkins quickly joining them. His car was severely damaged. After initially being taken by ambulance to the on-circuit medical center, Ratzenberger was airlifted to Maggiore Hospital at 2:07 p.m. local time, the second driver to be admitted there during the weekend. He suffered a basal skull fracture caused by the impact. The session was restarted 48 minutes later, but several teams, including Williams and Benetton, took no further part. Ratzenberger was confirmed dead as a result of his multiple injuries at 2:15 p.m. local time. Sid Watkins, head of the Formula One on-track medical team at the time, shared Senna's reaction to the news. Ayrton broke down and cried on my shoulder. Watkins tried to persuade Senna not to race the following day.
Sunday morning, just before the race, I said to him, Ayrton, you know, you're the fastest guy around. Why don't you quit? He said, I can't quit. I have to go on.
Senna had qualified for pole position based on his lap time during Friday qualifying before the incident, having not set a time in the Saturday qualifying session as he was mourning Ratzenberger's death. For the third time in the season, Schumacher was behind Senna on the grid. The race took place at 2 p.m. on May 1st, in dry and sunny weather. Unfortunately, weather isn't the only factor that comes into play when things go south. At the start of the race, J.J. Lehto stalled his car on the grid. Pedro Lamy, starting from further back on the grid, could not see Lehto's car due to other cars blocking his view, and his Lotus hit the back of Lehto's Benetton. Debris from the crash, including Lemmy's right front tire, flew into the grandstand and injured 4 spectators and a policeman. Lemmy was unhurt, but Lehto received a light arm injury. No stoppage of the race was declared as a result of the accident between Lehto and Lamy, and the safety car was deployed, with all the remaining competitors holding position behind it while traveling at a reduced speed. Once the track was reported clear of debris, the safety car was withdrawn and the race restarted after lap 5. Senna tried immediately to pull away from Schumacher, while Berger in third was already 2.586 seconds behind. On the 7th lap, Senna was going at a speed of 305 km per hour. He could not make the turn at Tamburello's left corner and continue in a straight line. Senna immediately tried to brake and reduced the car's speed to 211 km per hour. Unfortunately, it was not enough, and there was no time. Senna struck the unprotected concrete barrier. The car hit the wall at a shallow angle, tearing off the right front wheel and nose cone before spinning to a halt. After Senna's car stopped moving, he was initially motionless in the cockpit. After about 10 seconds, as recorded by the close-up aerial footage, his head was seen to lift to the left before returning to its original position. Thereafter, he did not move again. The right front tire flew backward and hit Senna on the head. A piece of suspension attached to the wheel had also partially penetrated his Bell M3 helmet and caused trauma to his head. Also, it appeared that a jagged piece of the upright assembly had penetrated the helmet visor just above his right eye. At 2:17 p.m. local time, a red flag was shown to indicate the race was stopped, and Sid Watkins arrived at the scene to treat Senna. He was pulled out of the car within minutes. Television coverage from an overhead helicopter was seen around the world as rescue workers gave Senna medical attention. Watkins later explained the situation. He looked serene. I raised his eyelids, and it was clear from his pupils that he had a massive brain injury. We lifted him from the cockpit and laid him on the ground. As we did, he sighed, and although I am not religious, I felt his spirit depart at that moment. After approximately 15 minutes of on-site medical attention, Senna was airlifted directly to Maggiore Hospital, becoming the third and final driver to be admitted there during the weekend. Williams team manager Ian Harrison went up to race control. It was clear that race officials sensed Senna's crash had been serious. Bernie Ecclestone later arrived at race control to calm the situation. However, the situation didn't stop the race from moving ahead. The race was restarted from the beginning of lap 6. After a fierce competition but without Senna in the race, Schumacher won ahead of Larini and Häkkinen. However, there were no celebrations on the podium, and all the talk after the race centered on Senna and Ratzenberger. At 3 p.m., around 43 minutes after the crash, the helicopter landed in front of Maggiore Hospital. Doctors rushed Senna into intensive care. A brain scan confirmed the diagnosis made on the track. At 3:10 p.m., Senna's heart stopped beating. Doctors restarted his heart and he was placed on a life support machine. Unfortunately, Senna's heart stopped beating again at 6:37 p.m., and the doctors decided not to attempt restarting it. Dr. Maria Teresa Fiandri, the emergency department head physician at the hospital, became responsible for providing medical updates to the media and public that had amassed at the hospital. At 6:40 p.m., she announced that Senna had died.
Devo solo dire che gli accertamenti elettroencefalografici che abbiamo terminato 5 minuti fa purtroppo confermano quella che era stata la diagnosi clinica di morte cerebrale.
Ma non resta più alcuna speranza?
No, purtroppo nessuna speranza.
Senna's death was considered by many of his Brazilian fans to be a national tragedy, and the Brazilian government declared 3 days of national mourning. The funeral, which took place on May 5, 1994, was broadcast live on Brazilian television, and an estimated 3 million people lined the streets of his hometown of Sao Paulo. As chaotic as the race was, so was the aftermath. Fans started blaming the FIA and Williams for their sudden change in the policies of Formula One. The speed of Formula One car had continuously risen over 8 years, despite turbocharged engines being made illegal, the width of tires being reduced, and driver aids eventually being removed. There was an air of invincibility in Formula One, a belief that the cars were inherently safe and no more drivers would die. Senna himself didn't like the updates and confessed that the new car was difficult to control and could cause many incidents.
Os carros, como eu já disse antes, de imediato são pouco mais instáveis com a retirada da suspensão eletrônica e pouco mais difíceis, então, com consequência de pilotar.
Another major controversy arose from the discovery of a broken steering column in Senna's car. During the investigation, it was revealed that the column had been modified before the race. The column was extended to better suit Senna's driving style, but the welds used in the modification were called into question. Experts examined whether this alteration could have weakened the column, causing it to break and lead to the crash. Although the Williams team and its personnel were acquitted of any criminal responsibility by jury, the shadow of uncertainty lingered in the fans. There are many questions, but the only answer from the FIA was that it was an accident that could have occurred to anyone, anywhere. Still, fans of Senna remember him and appreciate his contributions to motorsport and his relentless pursuit of excellence. His story is a reminder of not only the highs and lows of racing, the triumphs and the tragedies, and the constant drive to push the boundaries of what is possible, but also the dangers it holds. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of Formula One's most tragic stories. If you found this video insightful, please consider subscribing to our channel for more in-depth explorations of the sport we all love. Your support helps us continue to bring you the stories that matter